Campaign 2020 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Quick Trip, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, and Wisconsin Operating Engineers Local 139.
Cliff DeTemple of Jackson is a Republican candidate in the 5th Congressional District. The primary is August 11th. Mr. DeTemple, thanks for joining WisconsinEye.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Well, you're pretty new to politics, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
I mean,
yeah.
you've had your own business for a while.
Yeah.
So let's start with, what do you consider the chief issues? What are the issues that brought you into the race, sir?
In this particular race.
Yes, sir.
A couple things. One, I've had a small business for 18 years here in Wisconsin, so I've seen what the small business owners and development need in our environment here. Second, I've had 33 years in the military reserve, been deployed to 18 countries, so I've seen what's going on around the world and how the federal government is interacting with them. Good and bad. There's both good and bad in that interaction. But I saw a lot of money being spent. Good money, bad money, things that could be done a lot differently. So why did I get in the race? I have an 11-year-old daughter, and I don't want to see America go down. We're doing so well. We need to do better. So I got into politics now. It wasn't that I wanted to; it's that I needed to get into it, so that I can continue to serve the country in that capacity and help fix the things that I've learned all the years in the military and in small business.
Okay. I understand. Okay. How effective do you think Mr. Trump has been in the first 3.5 years of his term, sir?
I think he's done an amazing job under the conditions he's been given. Even if we took out the last couple months, the way the media's treated him, all the issues he's had, he's been under so much pressure. I look at it a couple things here. One, he did not need to get into politics. He could have simply retired and enjoyed his life. Instead, he cared enough to get involved in politics. I hope I can do that same thing where, I don't need to get into politics, but I think I need to as well. Effective. We've seen unemployment go down. We've seen a lot of improvements. Being in the military in the last 3 years, it was such a breath of fresh air to see the support the military got under his administration. Previous administrations did not give that same support, and we were looking at a lot of concerns in the military. So I think he has been effective. I think he's done a good job, and I think we could have even done better if he wouldn't have had all of the roadblocks and obstacles that have been put in his way.
With your experience in the military, I'm curious, when should American soldiers be assigned to dangerous areas like Afghanistan and Iraq? What's the criteria for us to get involved with our GIs in some of these very dangerous areas?
The U.S. military is all over the world. We are, these countries, when we get there, the news does not always portray it the same way. I've been in some of these other countries, and they are very excited for us to be there because their governments cannot help them like we can. We have the ability. With that said, I don't think we should do it all the time. We do need to help other governments help themselves. That is our goal, to help them help themselves, and then we need to get out. We need to avoid military action as much as possible. I know a question that I get asked a lot is, should Congress be the only one to declare war? It's their job. They should be the one to declare war. If the president needs to deploy troops on a short notice to protect the United States and our interests, he needs that ability. But any wars, anything longer over a period of time, that needs to be handled by Congress. That's something that needs to be in Congress. I think more congressional representatives need to have served in the military. you serve 1 year in the military, you have a better understanding of how the military is used and what we do. It's not just going into countries and providing, bringing in tanks and weapons and guns. The U.S. military goes in and builds water supplies for people, helps governments have their elections. These are all the things that never make the news that are so important. I spent months in Central America, in the Caribbean, and we fixed orphanages. We did all kinds of things that helped the U.S. government in our interests. Those people that we met down there had a better understanding of what the U.S. government did for them. And that's why a lot of people in Central America want to come to the United States, because they see the opportunity that we have and great opportunities that we can offer them. So I'm sure it's going to be other questions you're going to ask on immigration, but declaring war, that has to be by Congress, but the president has to have that flexibility on the short term.
Well, you mentioned it. Why don't we go to immigration now and DACA, the recent court ruling? Your thoughts on how secure are our borders, or what changes need to be done, sir?
Great. One of the things on my issues page is we need a secure border. No question. We need a secure border, but we need it secure physically, we need it electronically, and we need it emotionally secured. We need to stop people wanting to come to the United States. We know their lives are in sometimes turmoil in some of these other countries, and they want to leave. We need to fix that problem. We need to go after that problem. In the military, we call it going after center of gravity. What is your enemies or adversaries' center of gravity? So what is the center of gravity of our immigration problem? Why do people want to flow from Central America and South America come up to the United States? Well, they're trying to get away from either governments that aren't helping them out, helping certain groups of people. There are cartels that force their kids into the drug trade. We need to stop that. So what is it? Is it the drugs or is it the money? Their money. We need to stop the flow of money from the United States and other parts of the world into those drug cartels so that Central America can revive itself. If you're forcing kids to grow cocaine, or you could have them grow pineapples and oranges and other things that are profitable, we need them to be wanting to grow the pineapples and oranges, things that are a legal trade that we can help them with, and they have a stable community that they want to be in. I mean, as an American, we all want to go to the beaches in Mexico and Central America. It's beautiful down there. The issue is the people living down there have some bad conditions. It's either the government or those drug cartels. So if we focus on that center of gravity, we can fix our immigration problem. Immigration is not something that can be fixed in a very short period of time, but it needs to be addressed. But we need to keep our legal immigration going and stop illegal immigration.
The recent 5-4 ruling by the Supreme Court said the president may have the authority to end DACA, but Mr. Trump's administration didn't do it correctly. Let me get your take. Do we need to end DACA? And if so, what would you tell the, I think, 270,000 DACA recipients brought here as children?
Very difficult question. It's a very emotional question. They were brought in, illegally. So we need to handle it. We need to go back and do the legal method to get them in. Do they need to go back to their country and come back? The lawyers need to work that out. And do it a legal process. Because I don't want anybody that being jumped out of line or being pushed ahead, that wants to come here legally and immigrate here legally. So that's the thing. We also need to remove any incentives for people to keep coming illegal. We remove those incentives. If we say, hey, everybody that got here by a certain date, you're your grandfather, well, then people are going to keep thinking that's how we're going to continue to do our immigration process, so they're going to continue coming. So we need to put a stop to the illegal immigration, give the people a legal way to get here, and I think that would be a better way to do it.
So you do hope the Trump administration goes forward with the idea of ending DACA then, correct, sir?
Yes, I do.
Okay. The Supreme Court recently agreed to hear whether Obamacare is legal. What's your position on Obamacare? And if the Supreme Court throws it out, what should replace it, sir?
There's another good week-long discussion right there. And I think, one, Obamacare, nothing should be forced on somebody. When you have a penalty for not purchasing something, that's the wrong way to do it. We need to incentivize it. And there's two things to look at here. Health care and health insurance are similar, but two separate things. Health insurance does not mean that I don't have health care. If we can provide health care to individuals, we have that available. There are a lot of methods for health care in the United States that you do not get in other countries. We actually have good health care for people that have no health insurance in some parts of the United States, and depending on where you're at. Health insurance, though, on the other hand, needs to be handled more as local as possible. I don't believe the federal government was very good at putting out a health insurance plan. If anything that is too big has too many problems, loopholes, and so forth, because you can't cover everything. I believe the states have a much better ability to provide health insurance, health care at the state level with support from the federal government. But I think we need to address it that way. Incentivize health insurance and health care plans versus penalizing people that don't get it. No one should be forced to pay for something that maybe they can't even afford to pay for.
Do you think do you hope the Supreme Court then voids Obamacare?
Well, I wish the Supreme Court would not be used to create our laws and change things. I think that Congress needs to act and get that fixed. So we've been falling back on the Supreme Court too often to where Congress needs to act. So instead of Congress acting, we push it onto the Supreme Court and we say, well, we want Supreme Court justices to vote in how we want it. No, Congress needs to do that. They should just be comparing, hey, is this constitutional or not? Too much has gone to the Supreme Court, and I think Congress needs to start doing that do their job and get that done.
If the Supreme Court struck down Obamacare, then would you want Congress to guarantee no pre-existing conditions, no cap on what an insurer could pay, and children could be on their parents' policies till 26?
Children that long, I question that one because we keep pushing it older and older and older, and we follow that onto educational systems. At 18 years old, we give persons certain rights at 18. We can't keep extending it to 26. If we're saying they should be on their plan at 26, are we saying, well, they shouldn't vote till then? I mean, the age keeps going up for different things. So I think we need to start taking responsibility for ourselves and separate that. Your other question there is pre-existing conditions. Very difficult situation because when it comes to health care and health insurance, those are two different things. If you're going to provide private companies, they need to have some flexibility there. The government then, federal government, could create a catastrophic plan. Some states still have those. We had those catastrophic plans for those people that could not get covered. That needs to be separated for those severe pre-existing conditions. But we do need to create incentives for people not to go to the doctor with the sniffles every time. We need to have some personal liability there. So there has to be incentives to keep those prices down because there's no such thing as unlimited anything. So there have to be some restrictions, some safeguards in there. And I think a multi-leveled plan where the states have the most flexibility of creating that plan, having the federal government cover those catastrophic opportunities that might be out there, I think we can come up with a plan. I am not for continually raising a person's to fall on someone else's plan just because if you're 18 and older, if you're still in college up to a certain age, maybe, but I think if we continue raising that, it's going to be very difficult to manage.
Let's talk about the COVID pandemic. Should Congress pass and the president sign another COVID-19 relief package? If so, who should it be targeted to help? And is the soaring federal debt, should that be part of this debate, sir?
Well, the short answer on the debate, yes. We cannot continue the debt going up. We can't keep pushing it down to future generations. They're going to have more problems down the road if we keep raising that up. We need to take care of our costs now. On the pandemic, on the plan, I did not like how the first package came. One, the Paycheck Protection Act was awful. It went out. It was immediately told that it was a grant. So we had so many businesses applying for it. I've spoken with so many businesses in Wisconsin that tried to apply, couldn't get it in the beginning. Some did get it later on. But the larger banks were immediately giving these to the big companies. So the small company, the small business owner that had 30, 40 employees was not getting it. It was the larger companies. So I would never have put it out as a grant. What I would have done is put it out as extremely low interest to businesses. Actually, I would put it out as a negative interest, a -1% interest loan to businesses. This was something that helped Japan do a support after World War II. They gave businesses large sums of money to rebuild at negative interest rate. They still paid it back, but if they borrowed $1 million, they only had to borrow, they only had to return $900,000. So the government did take some of the hit, but the businesses had incentives to build their business and continue on. When you give money away with no incentive to pay it back, it's just going to go out. So in the Paycheck Protection Act, I definitely would have done differently. I would have given it out as a loan, a guaranteed loan to small businesses at a negative interest rate, paid back over 30 years. The stimulus money that went out to everybody, very different. We just give out money. I looked at some of the police agencies and they said 2 days afterwards, they were hitting up with crime because people all of a sudden had cash and they were using it for illegal issues. So just handing out money to everybody was not the way to do it. What I would have loved to have seen is the money go directly to supplies. So if our milk industry was hurting in Wisconsin, we were pouring milk down, federal government purchase up that and give it to people for free. It could go to stores and say, if you need it, this store will have it. They'll have that availability. This way we could have kept our businesses going. We could have kept our milk production going and keep those productions going and provide for people that really did need it.
So the $600, the additional $600 per week in addition to state's unemployment benefit was too generous, right?
Yes, that
too generous.
I looked in the last few weeks at the amount of employers in the Wisconsin area that were trying to hire. There was a day within a 10-mile radius of my office, there was 57 openings for businesses. No one was applying. I was trying to hire for business as well. People were not showing up for interviews. People were not even interested in the going rates because until that money is used up, so that all that extra money is gone, they didn't want to take a job. To actually equal what was giving out as unemployment, a company would be spending almost $25 an hour for an employee. With that extra $600 plus the states with benefits, you're paying an employee $25 at an entry level job.
Okay. Well, one other COVID question: Should hospitals and other healthcare providers receive legal immunity? For treatments or other responses to COVID-19 pandemic?
No.
They should not. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I would expand on that. We are very much a sue-happy nation sometimes. Too many people go immediately to court to sue for everything. You have to take some personal responsibility. But at the same time, we need to have a checks and balance. I want to make sure that doctors and hospitals aren't purposely putting someone off or not treating somebody. We need to have that checks and balance. Do I want everybody to go out and sue for the sniffles because something happened? No. But we need to have some checks and balances between insurance, hospitals, and the individual as well.
Okay. Americans know a lot more than they did 2 months ago about how some police treat those in their custody. The U.S. House has passed a police reform bill. Senator Tim Scott, the only African-American Republican senator, is working on one in the Senate. Do we need new national standards that would say things like no chokeholds and banning no-knock warrants? What's your feeling? Do we need new national standards, sir?
We can always use good standards, no question. Any program that can be improved, if it's police, transportation, education, I would never say we can never improve things. Things can always be improved. But I'm going to start with police do a darn good job. I would never want to defund the police. I think that's just crazy when I hear people calling about defunding the police. The chokehold thing. Second, any lawmaker that needs to make a law regarding police needs to either have ridden along with police, been a police officer, been somewhere where they've actually worked with police and seen some of it. I would love for every lawmaker to go to a police, find a police station, sheriff, and ask them to do a judgmental shoot and see what these scenarios are like and what police have to endure every single day. I personally had a friend lost from just walking up to a door and knocking on the door. So the police, under a lot of stress, they do a darn good job out there. So with reform, I can't say to get rid of chokeholds because there are scenarios out there when, it may be necessary, but that's something that the trained people have to deal with. I've never had to deal with chokeholds. I don't want to address that one. But I have done judgmental shoots in the military. I've had to see that, and it's very difficult. There are a lot of scenarios out there that are constantly changing. In the military, it's a lot easier because you're overseas. You have certain rules of engagement. The police, on a daily basis, have to deal with civilians. They have to deal with children, adults. They have to deal with people that might have mental issues. All those are compiling on what they have to do. So for police reform, do I believe we can get more training? I would love it. Get as much training as possible. Second, we need evaluations and training. Most departments, when we talk about defunding the police, they're losing their budgets. So they lose the money that actually was set aside for evaluations, psych evaluations. A person gets promoted. We don't, in any the military or police, you say you get promoted to your level of incompetence. Well, some people make great street patrol officers. They make great sergeants in the military. But when it gets to leadership roles, they may not be as strong. Doesn't mean they're a bad cop. Doesn't mean they're bad military officer. It's just they're not tuned for the leadership. So that testing needs to be there so that we have the ability for to get the right people in the right positions. That money needs to be there. The right education and testing needs to be there. So as people move up in the police or in the military, they're evaluated and we have the right people there and they're able to make those right decisions.
Okay. 2 final questions because we're almost out of time. How severe is the climate change threat?
Okay. Looking at science, Wisconsin at one time, I think, was an ocean. So the world changes. The earth moves, the plates move. There's a lot of science out there. I don't want to be concerned. I don't want to create a mass hysteria over climate change. Can we address it? Sure. Can we recycle? Definitely. But I don't think we need to create mass hysteria where there is none. We have so many other things to worry about. Can Congress do things for climate change? Well, we provide incentives. Instead of negatively affecting businesses, give incentives for businesses to be environmentally friendly out there. Second, people have that choice. If you want to choose to go to a company that and purchase their products or their services that's environmentally friendly, do it. If there's a place that is not as environmentally friendly, let the consumer make that decision. But I don't want to use mass hysteria to try to put out or destroy industries that are out there because this is going to affect our debt. It's going to affect a lot of things down the road. I want to protect our future for our children, but I don't consider climate change to be a super large thing that Congress needs to worry about.
Okay, and then the final question. Your primary opponent, State Senate Majority Leader Scott Fitzgerald, why are you more qualified than someone who's been an elected official for decades? Please.
Well, I think you just said it right there, an elected official for decades. I think both me and Scott have a lot of similarities, but our differences are going to be in the politics side. I'm getting in. One of the big things I'm running on is term limits. Scott is not a term limits person. He said that with his decades in office. I believe that more people getting into politics would help the system overall. Term limits is key. No one should be in Congress for 40 years. The only thing it's going to help is increase all of the lobbyists and money, the big money getting hold of you. They know where you live, they know where you work, and they get hold of you over those years. I need reasonable term limits. I think that's going to be the difference. Second, enthusiasm. Enthusiasm to take on the subjects. He may have not have taken on Evers as much during the pandemic and that we could have. I think going to Congress, we need to take on things that are going on in Congress. We need to take that on with enthusiasm. So that's what I'm bringing. I'm bringing with recent experience of being in a business. I've gone through the last 18 years here in Wisconsin running a business. He's been a long time out of running a personal business where you have that liability. So what I want to do is I want to bring that business accountability to Congress. Next, I've worked in Washington, D.C. with the military, deployed many times, and seen some big projects. So some of the big projects I worked on was Hurricane Maria, the BP oil spill. I saw a lot of things going on in D.C. with money that I want to go in and fix. Biggest one is government spend down. I met with congressmen while I was working in D.C. in different places, and they don't even know what government spend down is. And I explain that as it is every loading dock of every federal building in the month of September where they're buying anything they possibly can to spend all their remaining budgets. I want to remove that. We need to change how we spend money in the federal government, and that will bring down our debt and reduce our budgets every year. Okay. I am not against Scott. I think he's doing a good job at the state. I think by him staying at the state and me going into the federal side, I think we have a really strong team there. I am not interested in state politics. It is different. I want to bring what I've seen from around the world, in all those countries I've visited, all the work I've done in Washington, D.C. with the military, and I want to take that into Congress with that experience. The other thing is, the biggest thing is I stand for. You look at our yard signs, and you see a person's name, and then you see a person's name with what they stand for. I am pro-Second Amendment. I am pro-life. That is on my yard signs. My issues are on my website. I've been told I shouldn't put all my issues out there because I need to leave that anomaly out there. I want people to see exactly what I stand for. There's going to be no surprises in a year or 2 years down the road. Those issues are my issues. And that's what I'm going to stand for. And I want people to see that's the biggest difference between us. My issues are right there in front.
Okay, I understand. But just to clarify, what's your position on term limits? How many limits should someone serve in the U.S. House? How many years?
Okay, the years is going to vary. What couple things you have? Your first term in Congress being 2 years. You're there trying to find your desk, your office, and the bathroom. You don't get a lot done. There's no question. It's very difficult. That's any new business. Second year, you finally get on some good committees. So what I'm looking at is depending on the number of years, that's the second thing I'd like to see change. We should not have 2-year terms. They need to be 3-year terms or 4, because if you have a 2-year term, you're spending 25% of your time campaigning. You're coming back and spending time campaigning to get your next term. So what I would like to see is an 8 to 10 year, depending on how long the terms are, total term limits in Congress.
Okay, understand. We're out of time. Cliff DeTemple of Jackson is a Republican candidate in the 5th Congressional District. The primary is August 11th. Mr. DeTemple, thanks for talking to WisconsinEye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Campaign 2020 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Quick Trip, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, and Wisconsin Operating Engineers Local 139.